Good evening, everybody. Welcome to your Monday night's episode of Not Another Rangers podcast. This might be a strange one, not least because it's just me and Cameron tonight, but because it's a game and we're actually going to talk about Rangers winning. Shock horror. We won a game at the weekend, so we will discuss that in a little bit of depth, and hopefully we will then pick up a bit about Genk. So, unfortunately, Scott has been a late call-off, very, very late. So he 5 minutes ago, he has a migraine, so he's in his bed. He will watch us tomorrow, so please put kind words in the comments for him. He will appreciate that as he's lying unwell at the moment. Cameron, how are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm very good. It's refreshing to see us win for a change and actually play somewhat half decent. So it's one of the first time in a couple of months where we've won, and Monday mornings don't look so bleak.
As I know, we was that first goals, maybe 3 or 4 games. So the benefit of tonight with Scott not being here and Ricky not being here and Ross is it gives Cameron a chance to tell us all his views in as much depth as he wants. He often doesn't get a chance when there's a full house on. So expecting big things tonight. This is your moment to shine, Cameron, as we go through this evening. We are going to talk about the game in a bit of depth. We'll pick out some of the kind of key points, the key players. And some of the actually getting the VAR decision right for a change. Snipe was asking Scott's unwell. Sorry, I should have said that. Scott's unwell with a migraine, so he's in his bed right now. He will be back on Friday, no doubt, for there. So, in terms of the game itself, we've actually, as you say, it's the first win against a domestic team. Is that right? I think it's the first time we've beaten anything of the domestic, but maybe Alloa, first an SPL team. And before the game, Cameron, there was obviously lots of protests. I suppose I'm interested, what's your take on protesting in general?
I think it has its moments, doesn't it? I think we probably do too much of it as a club. If I'm honest, it seems that every season we're protesting about something, and even Celtic, even though they're winning and they're sitting top of the league, they're still protesting. So I think it has its moments. I think sometimes it get overused. I think the power's not the same as they once were because they get done so often. But I don't know what your thoughts, Gary. I'm not particularly a fan of them myself.
Yeah, that's the benefit of me. I've only been 2 years. I get to give an opinion, which my dad says to me sometimes. You never really say give an opinion. That's the job of the host, just to move things along. But now I get to give an opinion because it's 2 years. I'm not a big fan of protesting in general. I think, as everybody says, you respect the right to do it and all that sort of stuff that goes with it. But I'm never sure they add enough lot of value. We see protests for everything from in Glasgow City Centre every weekend. And half the time I don't even know what most of those protests are for. So does it actually change things? It lets people know the feelings of a group of fans. And again, you can never say it's for the majority, for everybody, because everybody's not there. But it certainly made it loud and clear, both to the players during the team talk, as far as I understand, and obviously to Andrew Kavanagh, who was there watching the game. So as we're I think it's these things. Personally, I would rather see these things after the game than before a game. I think it's probably always of the view that the 90 minutes of the game, stuff leading up to the game and the 90 minutes of the game, and then complain and argue and moan and protest maybe afterwards rather than beforehand.
Yeah, I don't. I remember I think the Union Bears put up a banner, didn't they, saying delaying the inevitable, get Martin out now, and I just thought that's not. I think you do that after the game. I think you're right. I think to do that during the game. I can't imagine being in Martin's shoes would be massively comfortable. To be honest, I don't think that helps anybody. And I think anybody who thinks that the 49ers are going to make decisions based off of fan reaction when they're 3-4 months in, I think is a bit naive, to be honest. These are experienced businessmen. They'll make a decision when it suits them.
Yeah. And thanks, Sniper. So get well soon, Scotty Boy says, and thanks for the donation there. I appreciate that. So the protests, obviously, before the game, everybody's got lots of people have got their Martin and Patrick Stewart out. I suppose just before, Patrick Stewart's obviously an interesting one. There's ire against him, maybe because of the things with Union Bears towards the end of last season, as opposed to where we are this season, because I'm not sure what role he has to play on the day-to-day football operations. Being chief executive is probably more involved in the business side of it as in actual signings and picking of players. I think that's maybe just more about trying to find targets to hit with it, as more than as well as just Martin.
Yeah, well, I think it's what happens when you become a CEO of any business. You take the upside and you take the downside. So when things go wrong, he's the first person people look to for leadership. In terms of the football side, he has employed people who do that aspect for him, and he trusts their judgment. People like Steinson, Purdy, Thelwell. He's hired these individuals to make those decisions for him. He's signed off the paperwork, in my opinion, possibly. But I think it's an easy target, if I'm honest. The guy's been in the job for 6 months, and before that, we didn't even have a CEO, and even the one we had before that, people were protesting for a long time. So I don't really get the point, to be honest. It just doesn't. I don't think he's done that bad of a job. I really don't. The guy's been in the door about 5 minutes, and because he's had a bit of a falling out with one section of fans who do seem to, at times, cause us problems in terms of players, pyrotechnics. I mean, even at the semi-final at Hampden, we're going to have 500 less seats because of incidents.
Yeah. So what do you think about that, actually, season aside, before I come back to another point? So that this whole, there's 1,000 seats now going to be missing. I don't know what happens to those 1,000 seats. I'm a bit confused by that. So both Rangers and Celtic with 500 seats taking them off them. Surely all the people lose out of that is if they don't sell them, and it's just money it's lost.
Probably go to corporate, I would imagine. Maybe go to corporate partners, maybe. It depends where those 500 seats are. They might just move everybody inwards and then just give those 500 seats to sponsors and things like that. I don't see how that's a punishment, to be honest.
No, there's not a huge amount of gain from it.
No.
Good evening, Linda. When still wants Stuart, Thelwell, and Martin out. That's still remains the views of many, I am sure. Because of there's a chance to pick up some questions. I'm going to see this question from Sniper there. And he says, do you think we've got a little bit ahead of ourselves thinking it would all change overnight? And I agree with the point. I suppose he's saying that because the takeover happened and the new shiny American owners, everybody thought things would be rosy, and maybe we've then not been able to deal with them when it's not been that case.
But maybe it's a case of be careful what you wish for. These are experienced businessmen who won't be swayed by fan reaction. So they'll make strong decisions and they'll provide strong leadership because they've got a history of doing that and they're no mugs. And we're seeing that now where fans want a certain decision and they're not taking it. Like a lot of fans would have had Martin out after the Dundee game to get second game of the season. So I think it's a case of be careful what you wish for. We wanted strong leadership. We wanted someone to come in and make difficult decisions, and they're doing it. They're just not making the decisions that people agree with. So, yeah.
And I think that's it. You know, we don't agree with the decisions. That's not always what it's about. And I think the challenge always is that if you're seeing progress, and progress is about really what you see in the 90 minutes each week, and because we've not been seeing that, it all looks wrong when fundamentally things can be happening in the background.
Yeah, but football's emotional, isn't it? You know, at the end of the Gerrard second season, people wanted him sacked, and people argue to this day that it was COVID that saved him. And if it was up to a lot of fans, they would have sacked him there and then. They wouldn't have kept him on for a third season. But people stuck with him in the third season. He won us 55. So, and the same with Van Bronckhorst. There were some people who say that we shouldn't have sacked him, but we did. So football's a game of emotions, and you can't be swayed by emotion in these types of decisions. You have to think logically.
And just picking up Robert's point, there's nothing wrong with a protest. Everyone has an opinion and the right to act. I don't think that MD would disagree with that. I think that we all have our personal views about whether protests are useful or not useful, or whether you'd participate or not participate. I think that's, as long as the protest is peaceful, it's done with respect, and it's getting the point across. I think that's the challenge sometimes, is where they cross the line or don't cross the line. No, I didn't go to the protest. I was at the game, didn't go to the protest. I met Scott just before the game, and he was standing with his Martin banner. Get Martin out. So he certainly believes him. That's different perspectives. There's nothing wrong with that. I think the question maybe somewhere around is the methods with these things, and we talked beforehand just briefly about that. After 10 minutes, the game was stopped because of a whole suite of balls were thrown on the pitch and the usefulness of that.
I don't quite get the point. Personally, I think the biggest protest you can provide is to not go to the game. Is to pull your support and say, I'm not supporting that. But to still go to the game and just, throw balls onto the pitch, it delays the game. And not only that, it did it behind our goal where Butland was. That doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to do it anyway, you wait until the Hibs keeper stood at that end and you do it then. But to do it 10 minutes into the game and disrupt the flow of the game, for what purpose, what message is that sending? But again, we saw it on Saturday. People are starting to just not go to games anymore, where But that's the thing with Rangers, and that's the thing with football. You might not want to go to a game, but there'll be someone else who does. So as I said earlier, normally I can't get a ticket for games. I can't, even if I'm a My Jersey member, I can't get a ticket anywhere. But now I can get tickets for every game. And I would go, minus the fact that it's like a 7-hour drive for me all in all. So you'll always get that.
Yeah. I suppose that brings me on to the final point in protest before we start looking at the game. I suppose the question is, if there was a crowd 35,000, which was arguably higher than they maybe anticipated or was suggested before the game, but 35,000 means there's 15,000 people not going. 15,000 that on average 20 quid each was that £30,000? Is that right? If I worked that out in my head very quickly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of money that's being lost by not going to games. So that the challenge is that when you're a club that doesn't have a lot of money, despite having American owners, the people who start to vote with their feet, decisions will maybe become quicker than. And in some ways that's the best form of protest than actually standing outside.
But a lot of them had scanned the ticket and just not gone in. So the money had been paid anyway, they just hadn't gone in. So that 35,000 number probably actually isn't fairly accurate. Because I know that's quite a common thing for people. They scan the ticket, just get the points, and then they go home. So I think maybe the 35,000, maybe if you minus potentially 5,000 off of that, so you're probably looking at 30,000. But I think if it's a one-off game, I don't think it hits you that much financially. I think it's only when you've got your 10, 15 games on and you're getting half your crowd, which I don't think would happen anyway. But that then it starts becoming a serious issue financially, I think.
Yeah. And my maths were terrible. If so it's 15,000, it was actually £300,000 in it. 20,000 people not going to a game is £300,000. That's a lot of money in Andy's book.
Yeah.
And Scott's just correcting me there to help my numbers out there because I got it wrong. So that's as a one-off, that's fine. But if you go to the European game and you're starting to struggle to get 30, 40,000 at those games as well, there's significant financial consequences.
Yeah, massive. But it'd be interesting to see what the crowd's like Thursday because it's a European night. So you might all of a sudden get 45,000 there again. But football fans are emotional. So as soon as the team starts winning 2-3 games, the fans will be back. So I don't think it will ever get to a point where there'll be massive financial losses. I don't think the 49ers would let it get to that point of view anyway. If 5-6 games down the line we're still getting half crowds, then maybe they'll act. But I don't think they're going to act based off of one game because we know in football things can change like that. He can now go on. You look at the next 5-6 games, they're all, or even 4 games, they're all winnable. You can go on a 5-match winning run, and all of a sudden things start to look a bit different, don't they?
Yeah. And that's what we're all kind of hoping for. Whether people believe it's going to happen or not is a different thing. So in terms of the actual game, I suppose the team lineup, we saw that Nico Raskin came back in to much acclaim from the fan base, and Derek Cornelius came in for Njiga. And I suppose the other tactical thing was Gassama went back to his natural left position and Mikey Moore went out to right. Were you happy with the team? Was it what you expected? Any particular thoughts on it?
I still don't like Moore. I don't see what he brings. He plays a lot narrow and then Tav stretches the pitch, which is different on the other side. Gassama stays wide and Meg Homer comes around and doubles up to cause 2v1s, but Moore just stays inside a lot of the time, which looks like it's a tactical thing, but his decision making is quite poor on the ball. And you saw Ant-Man when he came on, he was direct and he nearly scored arguably probably the best goal of the season for us, just dribbling through 4 or 5 players and then trying to slide one through. I think that is what we need at this in domestically, because that's how you beat low blocks. You just start committing players and gaps open up. I think the trouble with Moore is he doesn't quite have that quality yet. People bear in mind he's only 18. He's not going to be the finished article, and even if you're paying 20 million, he's probably still not going to be that great because he's 18. He's not. Yeah. There's very few 18-year-olds in the world that are world beaters. But Moore was the only thing that I was a bit surprised at. I thought it might have been the perfect game for Ant-Man. I was very shocked that Raskin even started, to be honest. Very shocked at that.
Did you assume he was still going to be benched or at the very best?
Yeah, that's what I generally thought it would be. I thought it would be a midfield 3 of Barron, Diamonde and Asgard. I really didn't think Raskin would even be on there. I thought that he'd maybe come on for like the last 20 minutes if we were getting beat, and kind of thrown on in the hope he could make something happen. But you can see he's a game changer. It was, like I said before, it's the first time this season I've seen a fully functioning midfield three.
I think in terms of the tactic, it's probably quite an interesting one. You mentioned there that Mikey Moore played quite narrow, effectively like a number 10. Tab was very high, but very wide, and Gassam on the other side doing the same with Asgard kind of and as a kind of another number 10 trying to work it. It certainly seemed that there was a very clear tactical plan as what they were trying to do and get kind of overload down both sides.
Well, if Moore comes inside, what we saw quite a lot was it frees up Raskin and Asgard. So it freed them up a lot of times in spaces to drive the ball forward. But then it didn't happen. The ball didn't move quick enough. So while Saturday was refreshing, there are still quite clear problems that the ball's not moving quick enough.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make all those tactical tweaks that you want, but if the ball's moving slowly, it doesn't matter. But yeah, it looks like that's his tweak. Is one side you've got Gassama who stretches the play and Makoma overlaps or runs in an invert, or you've got Moore who comes inside and almost forms like a box midfield, like a four-man box in midfield with Raskin, Diamande and Asgard holding the positions. But that's what it looks like to me. He did that very similarly against Celtic as well, Moore. So it looks like Martin clearly trusts him to do that.
Robert's put a comment there that Carter should be starting ahead of Moore. I've heard that a few times in social media and various things like that. I suppose my view, if I was to give a view, is that Finlay Carter has done well when he's played and scoring goals. I don't think he's necessarily his all-round game has been particularly any better. Certainly, I get the logic that because he's our player and he's a young player, and you're comparing like for like, you're comparing him against another young player that's not our player, and that seems to be the rationale between why you play one and not the other.
He needs to play. He needs to play week in, week out. We've seen that with Ross McCausland, and I think in many ways it stalled his development. If you're not, as a young player, if you're not playing every week, you're not developing. You don't gain you don't develop physically, you don't develop technically. And I think that's the issue that we've currently got with Curtis. He's clearly got the talent, but he needs to develop physically as well. So if he's that far down in the pecking order, where you're loaning in an 18-year-old from Spurs to start ahead of him, send him out on loan, send him out to Scottish Championship, Scottish League One, let him play every week, because that'll develop him and that'll turn him into an asset where next season you can maybe even be going, he's pushing for starting. But at the minute, this is going to benefit him nothing. Going to be no benefit to him whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't know. There's one moment in the game he did come on for the last 10 minutes, if I remember rightly, and I don't know if it was showed on the TV, but he's running through and he should really just cut the ball across, and there was 2 or 3 guys standing there, but took a shot when that kind of went nowhere. And I suppose some of that is about playing games, decision making, doing the right thing, and it's fine you're 2-0 up, but if that's 0-0, it's you're getting criticised heavily for it. Yeah,
well, I remember Ross McCausland when he in his sort of debut season, I think he was 1-on-1 at Parkhead against Celtic, and he should have scored and he didn't. And it was like, how is he not? Or should he have squared it to Seamat? I can't remember, but either way, his decision making was poor, and the occasion got to him. And again, that's where you need your young players to be playing. You can't play them as we've seen it with Leon King. You stick them in too early at a level which is too high for them, they crumble. You've seen that with Leon King when he got demolished in the Champions League, absolutely wrecked him, and I don't think he's ever recovered since, to be honest.
No. I don't even know where did he go again? He went somewhere.
Didn't he? He stayed in Scotland, didn't he?
Can't remember.
I think he did leave. Was it Ayr? Was it Ayr United?
You might be right. So, in terms of the team lineup, there probably wasn't an awful lot with Rothwell injured and with Cameron injured. There probably wasn't a lot of other options in the midfield. Barham was probably the only other one that might have come in, or Bajrami. And obviously, Giga drops out to allow Cornelius to come in. So, how do you think Cornelius done this first game?
I thought he did well. I mean, there's still stumbling blocks. Him and Suter probably need to that partnership, get an understanding of each other's players, but he definitely offers that pace in behind, and he looks like a bit of a commanding figure. There was a couple of times he was pulling McHomer in, bollocking a couple of players, which I'd like to see. You want that kind of lead at the back, because I don't think we have that. I think Balogun was. I don't think we've had it properly in a starting centre half since Goldson, even though Goldson just kind of moaned at people non-stop, even when it was his fault. So I was really impressed with him, to be fair. Obviously, I know he got caught out for the goal that hit that was disallowed. But that's just unfortunate when you play such a high line. You're always going to be vulnerable to a high ball over the top. But he did really impress me. He was physically imposed himself, and he kept the back four together, which was really good to see for a change.
Yeah. I don't know if you could see it in the TV, but it was quite interesting. It kind of was like back when he didn't have the ball. It was kind of like a back three. McGowan would move inside a little bit. Certainly as the game went on, maybe not right at the start. And as you said, Tav was pushed very high. So it was obviously trying to compensate a little bit by having a bit more depth at the back. Although, as you say, 20 minutes in, 20 minutes in, ball over the top. Martin Boyle runs through. Finishes it well, I thought. I mean, I've seen some criticism of Butland. I thought it was a good finish. And I think the cycle's starting again. Did you see it straight away? See the handball? Certainly when I watched it.
I didn't, because obviously, yeah, when you watch, because Premier Sports, it was showing it from the club deck, I think. So I didn't see it because I know Michael Stewart was saying, "What a touch, brilliant touch," and then he's looking at me and go, "Oh, it touches his hand." So yeah, I thought the same. I thought it would go again, and I just thought we'd crumble. But look, his hand's by his side. He's running, but they get given. They get given every week, and we don't know what the handball is anymore. It's an absolute farce. So whether it's right or wrong, I don't know, because you could see that you could have that incident play in so many different games, and I bet it doesn't get given in every game, even with VAR looking at it. To be honest,
I think that the challenge is that I mean, there's a rule, and I don't know the rule off the top of my head, but you play football, so you might know better than I do. But if the ball hits your hand and leads to you then scoring, was it a factual overturn? Is that what they call it? Whereas obviously the big debate from last week's one was Shittingland actually grabbed the ball and ran a wee bit first, but they didn't give VAR with that one because it wasn't the immediate thing that led to the goal. I think was probably the argument.
I think it's because they've changed it so many times. It was always if the ball touches your hand in an unnatural position, or you use it to control outside your body, then it's handball. And if your hand's kind of tucked in and touches your hand, it's not handball, because there's been so many different variations of that rule. I don't think anybody's clear on it whatsoever. So I think it's literally now left to people's interpretation of that rule, which I think is what we're seeing. So we seen it last week. Someone interpreted Shanklin as not handball, whereas if you were to get a different VAR official in, they would interpret it as handball. And I think that's the issue that we've got, is with the handball rule. There's so many different. There's no black and white, and it's like if it hits the hand at any point, it's handball. But for whatever reason, with VAR, people are going, yeah, but where does it hit his hand? Where's his hand placed? That sort of thing. How far is the ball from him? All that sort of crap. So I don't think it's clear at all.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knows handball rule at times. I mean, there was one, I'm trying to remember the one. Remember the one, the European game a couple of years ago, Barisic, it might have been a Europa League run, and it clipped his finger before he hit a cross in. I think it might have been Kemar Roof that scored. It didn't actually matter. Maybe not actually the game you were at, Braga game. Or
I think it was Braga, because he had a hat trick and they were ruled out. He scored a number of goals that night, and they were all ruled out.
And I think it hits his fingers or something. Something, nothing, and just didn't no impact on the ball. But
his hand was actually here. It was like it was tucked into his body, but it scraped his fingers, and VAR went, yeah, it's handball.
I mean, I suppose there is a different debate whether you think that's right or wrong, whether that should happen. Certainly, the Boyle one, if it doesn't hit his arm and it hits his hip, does the ball run the way it does, and does he get the clean through to get the goal? I suppose that's the argument, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that is the argument. I think if it hits his hip or it hits his side or his thigh, I don't think it's not as good as a touch as Michael Stewart made it out to be. To be honest.
So the first half hour, I suppose, we've been caught with that one. There's also another one they've kind of hit over the bar on the break. But generally speaking, I thought we were actually playing quite well. You could actually see the passing. Now, there was not a lack of penetration. There was a lack of once we got to the edge of the box, but the actual passing around was kind of what we were expecting to see all season and not quite seen.
Yeah, I thought it was just refreshing to see. It was just refreshing to see something nice, and it's just like people are still being negative about it, and it's like, but we played some decent stuff. Like, all right, we didn't blow them away, but like you say, we played some decent stuff. I was actually impressed. I thought that was nice. That nearly came off. And the thing with the 2 balls over the top, that's just because the press didn't work. That's because probably someone's not pressed in the right order, or not pressing the right trigger. That's all that is. If you press correctly and you can play a high line, then you kind of you limit that. But because our press hasn't been as it should be, but I think that again that'll come with time. People will know.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. And if I remember rightly, the game of the first one that the guy hits the back and hits over the bar, I think it's actually Raskin. Funnily enough, if I remember rightly, that jumps up. I think the ball goes over the top from there again, and that's probably that desire to win the ball, but maybe not doing it at the right times, which has partly been some of the issues this season with him and Martin apparently. So we then get to 40 or so minutes, and I turned to my daughter and said to her, I don't know why I've not done a near post corner for a while, because every corner's been right to the back post, looking for Suter and so forth. And the next thing you know, cracking delivery from Tav, near post corner, Raskin, who is allegedly a wee guy, but I think I heard today he's 5'10". He's maybe not as small as people would like it make him out to be. Jumps really well, smashes in a header that the keeper's got no chance of saving. Really good goal. Probably the third or fourth time he scored that in the last 2 years. You wouldn't have seen this, but in the Daily Record today, Keith Jackson said, Martin deserves no credit for that goal because it's Barry Ferguson done it with Raskin when he was the manager.
Yeah, fair, but still scored, still went in. So yeah, maybe he should get the credit, but it's just nice for a change to see someone whip a ball in with pace, because I hate it when we do the big, lofty, floaty balls. I hate them because you can't get any pace on the ball when you hit it. You can't get any speed, any power. You've got to then generate that all yourself. When you whip a ball in with pace, you just have to get a touch and you use the speed of the ball. And that's what Raskin's done. He's just literally just got a little glance on it and he's used the speed of the ball and it's gone in. And the reason I think why Raskin scores so many is because nobody expects that from him. I think is why. Because he's a small, like, well, he's 5'10", I'm 5'11", and I think I'm quite tall. So, but yeah, he's 5'10". I don't think anybody's tracked him. He made that run across the front. So I think it's fine if you do it in variation. And I think that's the thing that we need to come up with. We need to come up with other variations of corners to do. Because if that's the only one that we score, we're going to get found out relatively quickly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know the Hearts game last week, which was terrible, right? I think we've got to caveat every time we mention the Hearts game and saying how poor we were. But there was at least four corners I remember Tav whipping into the 6-yard box, literally on the 6-yard line each time. That's a similar one, but nobody was there. So I suppose the argument is, when you play football, Karen, a corner's only as good as the guy that gets his head on it, and it doesn't matter how good the delivery is often or not. Unless somebody gets their head on it, it's a rubbish corner.
Yeah, or maybe that was just Tav failing to beat the first man with his delivery. You never know. It depends on the runs from the guys in the box, but I say it with my team when I play, just whip it in with pace. Don't float it, because if you float him, it gives the cheaper a chance to come from. If you whip him in with pace, anything can happen. But with Tav, I've always hated Tav taking corners, I'll be honest, because he's very inconsistent. He either lofts them and they're awful, or he doesn't beat the first man. I remember back in Gerrard days, I think it was the Aberdeen game in the cup final, Candeas and Tav, and none of them beat the first man at all. So, yeah,
it's always a tricky one. I watched some of the Arsenal Man City game. I think Madueke each time didn't beat the first man either, and it's that same thing, the same corner. There's obviously a plan there, but it doesn't actually work right. The guy doesn't get across, all the sort of stuff that goes with it.
Yeah, but then if there's an opposition player that actually stood on the 6-yard line and is actually not having to move it to clear, it's like, well, what kind of a set piece is this? But I think at one point, we had a corner, and I think it was such a poor delivery. The Hibs actually ended up getting the ball and getting a corner up the other end straight away from us giving the ball away.
I think it was so Alan's asked about the telephone celebration. I've never seen him do that. I don't know where it's from. I don't know who he's looking to get a call from. His dad's on social media most of the time, so it wouldn't be his dad.
I think that was referencing something Martin did a couple of weeks ago in a press conference. Because I believe so. Because I think I could be wrong, but he made some sort of a hand gesture like that or something. Because he said about Nico, he said people are ringing him. Yeah. So I think that's what that was referencing. So I don't think Raskin has forgotten for a minute what Martin has said in the press. So I can't remember what game it was. I think it might have been. It was the game in which he was asked about Raskin's future, and he said he's getting calls from people or something like that, and he made some sort of hand gesture at the time, very sneakily.
So a minute later, actually, Hibs got the park and probably should have scored, to be honest with you. Got across in, Martin Boyle header. Fortunately, a poor header goes by the post, and then within another couple of minutes, ironically enough, the 4 minutes added time because of the time probably clearing up the pitch, we go up the park and score. Now, that's a really good goal, from a whole host of levels. One, we kept the ball consistently for a long time, moved it about from left to right, and then players were moving, and I think it's Raskin that's out on the right-hand side, which is nowhere near what you would deem to be his position. Whips the ball in, Moores made a good run, hits a shot, deflected, and Miovski is standing in the 6-yard box to do what any good striker should do and finish it. But all round, it's one of those ones that you don't. It looks like a scuffed finish and just an easy goal in, but it's a lot. It was a really good build-up when you go back and look at it.
It was a really good build-up, really good, and it was exactly, I think, what Martin wants to see more of, and it all came from Mikey Moore just making a run into the box from a deep position, which we've not seen enough of. We've seen a lot of his players standing in what he likes to call half positions or half spaces, where they just stand there and you just wait patiently for a gap to open and then you make the pass. But sometimes there's nothing wrong with just working the ball wide and someone making a deep run. And it was really good to see that. I think that's one of the first times we've done it this season. But it was the only thing really I think Moore contributed to be honest, was that run in. Great ball from Raskin, great link up with Tav. And there you go, 2-0. And I think that gave us a bit of breathing space going into half-time, because I think at 1-0, Hibs would feel very much that they were still in that game, having had a goal disallowed and Martin Boyle missing from a very short yards.
Yeah. I suppose what that did then, it probably took the handbrake off, to use that saying it's often used in football for something. And you could visibly notice as the second half came out, they were much more confident, much more relaxed. It wasn't fully flowing football. It wasn't. But when you look at the chances we had from Gassama hitting the bar, I think Biofsky had one cleared off the line, Moore had one just by the post. As you say, Ant-Man's out solo run. There was more creativity and more options and more attacking play than we've probably seen in all the other games combined. And they looked visibly more confident, a bit more relaxed trying to play.
I think that was probably because he had a team actively trying to come out and there were spaces for them to play into. I think that was the big thing, because normally in the domestic games we've played, there's not really been any spaces for us to play in. Kind of the ball's been moved about slowly and it's kind of been recycled. We've lost the ball, it's long ball over the top and we go 1-0 down. But I think Hibs kind of had no choice but to open up against us. And I think that played into our hands a bit. So the players all of a sudden started to find spaces, which gave them confidence. You mentioned when Miovski had cleared off the line. I think it's a brilliant run from Gassama. Because as soon as that ball goes to the Hibernian fullback, he straight away closes that space between the goalkeeper and the opposite side. Just sits there. Just as soon as he makes that pass, he's straight in. The only thing I would have liked was a bit more composure from Gassama. I think Asgard was probably the better option of the two. I know he said it for Miovski, but even Miovski could set Asgard, because Asgard's then he's got the whole goal to aim at. So I think decision making again in the final third is still something which we need to work on.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. So I'll just pick up on that then. So Gassama, I thought Gassama is obviously naturally on the left-hand side. He looks much more comfortable. He's much more attacking. He can beat somebody. What probably struck me watching the game, and it's probably struck me a lot of the games, is his decision-making. There's maybe a reason why he only got 2 assists or so last season at QP. Was it QP? No, Sheffield Wednesday, sorry. Is that he often picks the wrong option despite doing lots of good things. Now he's only young, so I'm not criticising him. But you can see why he's more of a goal scorer than he is maybe a creator at times.
But I think you see why we signed him, because typically, I mean, the wingers second half played quite narrow and McCollum provided that width. So I think he wants his wingers quite narrow. I think he wants his wingers popping shots off, which I think was part of the reason why we signed him. He has got a hell of a boot on him. When he gets behind it, he can really rocket them. I think he'll probably get double digits this season for us, easy. But like you say, there are times where his decision making is quite poor, and I think that that will be a big frustration for us this season. I think we'll see quite a lot of times where we'll just be holding our heads in our hands going, why has he done that? Why has he not made that pass? Why is he not shot? But like you say, he's a young player and he'll learn that through experience. But I really like what I've seen so far from Gassama. He's been probably the one very few shining lights that we've had.
Yeah, he's got ability, he's got pace, he's got touch. Some of his control is excellent. You know, he's got that. What is he, 21-year-old maybe or something? So it's just maybe knowing when to play the ball at the right times, rather than cutting inside or shooting, or rather than trying something a little bit more fancy. So but that'll hopefully come, and as they get to know, I think having Asgard beside him will help him, and we'll come on to him shortly. But I'm just going to pick up the question from Paul. So Magoma's an interesting one. I mean, so I think he's been good. He's one of those players that you don't really seem to see an awful lot in a game, if that makes any sense. He's there and he's doing positive things and he's looking comfortable in the ball, but he's not flashy or he's not involved in everything that's happening. So I suppose that's a compliment in a lot of ways, because he certainly looks like a good player, but I suppose he's not one that's ever going to stand out in the team at this moment in
time. No, but then again, you just need players who do the simple things and do them really well. Because you have a team that always, trying to outshine each other, then you just become a team of individuals. So, Coleman for me has been really impressive, and I know there was a lot of people who were very dubious about him because he was a young lad. He couldn't really get a game at Preston, but I think you're seeing that doesn't always tell a story. I think because even is it US? What's the team? FCSB, Steco Bucharest, I think. They've got a centre half that they signed from Portsmouth. He's their captain, and he played at Portsmouth in League One, and he's now captain in a Champions League side. So, just because you've come from a lower league division or you were on loan at a lower league team doesn't necessarily mean that you won't be a good player. And I think that's prevalent with Makoma because people were questioning it when we sold Yilmaz, and then a day later we signed Makoma, and people were like, we wanted an experienced one, but he's starting to form a really good partnership with Gassama straight away. And I think them two could be really key for us moving forward. And if we've got an option to buy Makoma for, 2-3 million, I think that's a no-brainer for us.
I think he's one of those ones. So I suppose if you look at Jeffy, he could drive with pace. Now, he drove inside or didn't actually do much in terms of assists, but he was probably more prominent in the game. Ridvan was kind of all action before he got injured each game. Whereas Magoma is probably more understated. I think that's probably the best way to put it. He's maybe more understated in a game that you don't see as much of him in terms of what he's doing, although what he's doing is good things, if that's the best way to put it.
I think Jeffy was unlucky because I think I always say it with young players, especially with fullbacks, if you've got experienced centre halves next to you, they can sometimes help coach you through a game. And I think Jeffy someone who could just coach him and just talk to him. And I think if he'd have had that, a more experienced centre half, someone like Cornelius next to him, I think defensively you could have seen him in a lot of a better light. But with Makoma, he's got that behind him in Cornelius as well. But I think what Makoma is, he's just a standard fullback. He can defend reasonably well. His attacking is okay, but he just is a solid left back. And as a young lad, that's all you need, to be honest.
Yeah. It's maybe the argument was spoiled by some ways with fullbacks, with them being marauding and goal scoring and other stuff that happens with it. When they just do their job as a fullback, it maybe seems.
I think we're comparing him to Tav, who is a fullback and has scored over 100 goals for the club. Not all fullbacks are going to be as attack minded as Tav is. So that's just the reality. And unfortunately, we judge fullbacks in modern day by their attacking output instead of their defensive output.
So the other player I want to pick up on was Asgard. Now, I thought he was excellent. Not that he really done huge amounts of things, but you can see a player sometimes when the ball comes to him, his body movement, the way he can drift away with some of his touch and control. I thought there's something when you watch him, you can see there's a player there.
Oh, he plays great in very tight spaces. And I think that I like him. He's a physical lad. He's physical. He's tall. He's kind of bulky, muscular. He couldn't get the ball off him at times. And I think we've missed that in midfield. I'd like to see him be a bit more creative at times because it feels that again that decision making is not always there with him. I would like to see him get his numbers up, maybe get a goal because we seen, didn't we? He got a hat trick when he was away with Norway.
Yeah, 4. Was it 4? So,
Yeah, even that. I'd like to see him getting more attack-minded spaces. Like when the ball's drifted out wide, I'd like to see him get in the box and go up for a header. I don't know whether that's tactically. He's been told not to do that. He just tends to sort of roam on the edge of the box and pick up second balls. But I would like to see him, because I think he could be, especially in the wide areas, I think he could be a massive asset if you get him in the box. Gives you another target man to aim for. If you've got Chimiti and Miofsky in there already, imagine if you've got Asgard in there. You've got three big lads over 6 foot who can win a header. So I'd like to see. He's very, very tidy, great footballer. But I would like to see him start putting in some numbers.
To be honest, think when he's played at Luton and Wigan, he did score lots of goals as well as assists. I think it's maybe, it's been fair with him. He's only about 3 or 4 games into his Rangers career after his injury, so he's probably still getting.
He'll still be finding his way, won't he?
Yeah, but you can see the difference he's got, the touch and technical ability he's got, and as you say, the strength, the kind of bit of awareness. It reminded me in some ways, and this is going to sound silly, but when I was thinking about it earlier on, a bit of your Joe Aribo, like in terms of big, strong, physical touch, control, and can move quite quickly with the ball.
Yeah. The thing with Joe at times is he could often go missing in fairly big games. That was the thing I found with Aribo.
Yeah. Which is what Nicholas is saying. People think he's lazy because he doesn't run about. People often say that, but Joe Aribo as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was. He was very clever. I just remember his goal against Braga. Was it Braga? We came back. Had you scored a free kick?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I always remember that. And he just
been left back at the time, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think unfortunately because he played sort of his last season that he was with us, he played the half of the season as a striker when he wasn't a striker. You saw his limitations as a player, as a finisher, and I think more recent memories of him probably aren't fair to him, because he did get put in a position that he wasn't suited to. Yeah. But with Asgard, I think he could be better than Aribo.
No, definitely. I think so. I think it just reminded me of him certain these traits, and that kind of the ability to take the ball in and move with it was similar. Not obviously vastly different players, but that way you look at somebody and you see
he won't be with us long. No. I guarantee that he won't be with us for very long. He'll be with us 2 years max.
No. And if that's the case, that's good, because he's probably been successful, and if he's been successful along with another number of players, we might actually start to do well. And the last player I'll pick up on, just because Chermiti came on for the last 15 minutes and had a chance, missed a chance. I'll give him credit. He ran for his own halfway line, looked pacey, looked strong, looked physical. The finish was a little bit too
decision making. Yeah. Decision making again. Curtis was open on the left hand side.
Right. But then I suppose if you're a striker, desperate to get your first goal, maybe that there's you're winning 2-0. I can understand why you do it. Not that you should do it, but I can understand perhaps why you do it. He's also done an interview today saying he's feeling he's much more settled in now, and he's had the last 2 years to learn English, and he's at the right club. And Russell Martin, he said really good things about Russell Martin, saying all the right things, and he's looking to get a start from now.
It seems that outside of the club we hear very good things about Russell Martin, but inside the club we don't hear very good things. So that's quite interesting to hear, isn't it? It's always hard to judge a player, I think, when they come on for 10 minutes in a game like that. He had kind of one chance, he blew it. I don't think that's a fair representation of him as a player. I'd like to see him get a couple of starts when he's kind of a bit more integrated into the team. I can definitely see what he brings. He's pacey, he's powerful. But yeah, I don't. We haven't seen enough of him really to kind of see what kind of impact he's going to have on us as a team. To be honest,
he looks like that. I suppose the kind of player that Everton have as a striker, don't they? Whether it's Bebeto or Calvert-Lewin, the big, strong, physical player that has a bit of power, maybe not a lot of finesse at times. He looks like an identical Everton striker over the last couple of years. There's a couple of times I think he fell over the ball, or when he came on.
I think his first touch, he fell straight over it. Yeah. One of his first touches, you thought brilliant. I don't think he's going to get us 20-odd goals a season. To be honest, I don't think he will. I think he'll get fairly average numbers, maybe 15, something like that. He like you say, he doesn't look like the type of striker who's a great finisher, whereas I think Miofsky is. So I think. He seems to me like, when you're playing against your St. Mirrens and your Motherwells and you've got big brooding centre halves at the back, I think he's your player to deal with them, to bully him, to back into him, to kind of let balls sort of bounce off. So I think that's where we'll probably see him be most effective, to be honest.
So without wanting to go into Russell Martin in great depth, because I think it's been done to death over the last couple of weeks in some ways, and when you've won the game, it's kind of irrelevant because until the next game or the next loss or the next defeat or the next bad performance, you'd be repeating the same stuff over and over again. I think it gives them a bit of a stale execution at this moment in time. Fans will maybe be a lot, not lenient because they won't believe they still have the same view, but they'll maybe be a bit less irate come Thursday night, perhaps.
Yeah, possibly. The players to at full time head down the tunnel having not been booed, so that was probably a bit of a confidence booster in itself. But we're coming into quite a busy 2 weeks. We've got a game Thursday, a game Sunday, then another game Thursday, then another game Sunday. So you've got 4 games sort of in the space of 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how he gets sacked in the next 2 weeks, purely just because you've got a massive fixture pile up. So unless you've got someone on speed dial ready to take the job, I don't see that at all. I think I want Martin to be successful. I want every Rangers manager to be successful. I don't want Martin to get sacked. But we need to see more from what we saw Saturday. We need to see, it was promising, it was refreshing to see, but we need to see more of it Thursday.
Yeah.
So maybe a bit more of a structure at the back. We need to see some more of those patterns of play and maybe a bit more clinicality up front. And I think, like I said at the start, all of a sudden you win 4 or 5 games on the bounce, things start to look a little bit different. And maybe it just was you had a rocky start. I do think tactically he's starting to adapt. We saw that Saturday. He's not quite as hung up on his system as he was at the start. He is starting to adapt his system, which I think is working. But we still need to see more. But I don't see him being sacked in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. And pick up Stephen's point, I don't disagree with you. Do you know, it's a big deal. Yes, he will have won one game. That the point is, I suppose, we're talking about that game, and then we'll talk about next game. And if he gets beat, we'll then criticise again. I don't think that he's anywhere near got himself back on side, but it's a win. It's a positive result. It's probably the most complete performance you've seen over them so far, but still a long way to go before the fans are on side and we're no longer 11th in the league, and we're actually moving up the table. So I think that's a view of everybody. Just there's no real gain continually talk about it for an hour in a podcast.
No. Well, to be fair though, he's up against it, isn't it? He's been up against it since he got the job. So unless he wins the domestic treble, I don't think he'll ever win the fans over. I think that's the harsh reality. So unless he goes on a 40-odd game winning streak and he wins, he beats Celtic. I think if he beats Celtic at Hampden, minimum, I think he will then start to get some back on side, because you've got an opportunity to dent your big rivals and get in silverware. And we're in a cup semi-final, and finally we're starting to see some stuff. So these next month could potentially save him. But again, like I say, you've got a lot of fans who've already made their mind up, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So just on to that, so Celtic withdrew in the semi-final, unsurprisingly. Do you know, in some ways I think that was probably written in the stars. It was going to be that when the 4 teams were there.
Yeah, our ball would have been hot, theirs would have been cold, or something like that.
Yes, obviously that's just allegedly, because we wouldn't say that's the case. But we've drawn Celtic, and I'm just trying to think of the time. So is it the 2nd and 3rd of November? So if I'm working out in my head,
it'd be the 3rd, wouldn't it? It'd be the 3rd.
It's almost certainly the 3rd. But so is it literally just after the break? Is there maybe one game before it? It must be pretty much after the next international break.
Well, the next, I think, after
mid-October, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think after next weekend it's international break again, isn't it?
Aye. So that's you into.
So yeah, there'll be because we don't play a league game again until.
So it must be coming up pretty soon.
Yeah.
And obviously, big game. We will get to that in a few weeks' time. But as you say, it gives us an opportunity to potentially reach a cup final, which is the last 3 trophies to win each season.
Well, we've got a good record against them in recent times. So, the last time we played them in a cup, we were desperately unlucky, weren't we? We lost on penalties.
some would argue there's a lot of debatable decisions over the last couple of games as well, which has maybe not went your way as well. Yeah,
They weren't remotely debatable. They were wrong. They came out and said so.
That is very true. And if that was it, sliding doors moments, Philip Clement could still be here if he'd got that cup final, won that cup at the time, and the season might have been totally different. Who knows? Who knows? And I suppose that's football, and it's based on moments. So we play Genk, Cameron, on Thursday night. Genk are struggling badly already this season themselves. I think they've played 8 games, won only 2 of them, sitting third bottom of the league. We've obviously been bruised a little bit by playing a Belgian team recently, but prior to that, our record against Belgian teams was pretty outstanding actually over the last couple of years. Are you of the mind that we cannot, should not, will not lose this game?
But it feels very much like a Beale moment against Betis. You know, it was a very similar situation. Things weren't going great in the league. We had kind of the game against Betis coming in. We put in a decent performance, and people thought, finally, this is it. It's starting to click, and then it went downhill again straight away on the Sunday. So it'll be interesting. And Thursday nights at Ibrox are always different. So the game may suit Martin, because I think a team that comes out and actually plays against us, I think will suit him. So I'm confident going into Thursday. It's partly because it's at Ibrox, and like you say, Genk aren't doing very well. They're a bit low on confidence, and I think if we can get a win Thursday, I think the confidence throughout the team will certainly start to be picking up. So I think it could be a very good game for us.
I mean, certainly looking at the level, when you look at Genk, I was looking at transfer market and see who they've signed. They've only, their signings are maybe £3 and £4 million players. They've not signed. They've maybe spent about £18 million. I think they sold their big names. They sold one into the English Premiership. I can't remember who, maybe a striker. So in terms of their caliber of opposition, I can't imagine they're any better than Panathinaikos or Pilsen. You wouldn't assume.
No, you wouldn't assume so, would you? To be honest, I mean, Pilsen. I remember watching again. Pilsen at home against us were poor. That game could have been whatever score we wanted it to be honest. So it probably is a level playing field. It just depends on. I think generally Thursday. It just depends on the managers. Generally does. If we set up right and we exploit their weaknesses, it could generally be an easy game for us. But likewise, if we don't set up right and they play long balls over the top, which seems to be the easy thing to do, we might be in for a bit of a long night. But I've got every confidence that we'll get past Genk on Thursday. So
looking at the team lineup sense, there's Bajrami's not in the European squads. You've got Rothwell presumably and Cameron still out, so there's not been much talk in them.
Oh no, Rothwell's back Thursday.
Rothwell back, is he?
He's back Thursday, yeah.
So I suppose the argument is, do you continue to play the same team because it won and done well, or do you look to make changes, be that Chermiti, Giga, Rothwell, as you said, guys like that? What do you expect, or what would you do?
I'd swap out Dio. I think he needs to spend a bit of time on the bench, because I thought Saturday he was really poor. I think you put Rothwell in because I was really impressed with what I saw against Hearts. I really was. So I think my only change would be, well, 2 changes actually. Put Antman out there on the right instead of Moore, because I think he'll get a lot more space, and I think I fancy him to get a goal or an assist. And I think you play Rothwell instead of Dio, because I think he can provide a lot more quality in that part of the park.
So obviously, Russell Martin's comments about Dio was, Raskin and Dio in some ways, was about Raskin's ability to go anywhere about the pitch was supported by the fact that Dio can cover at the back. Now, using that logic, you're saying Rothwell, whose mobility has been questioned since the start of the season, does that then present more of a risk than that?
Well, I don't think you should particularly change an entire part of the pitch to benefit one player, because I think that's quite stupid. Because what if Raskin gets suspended or he gets injured? You're then kind of facing off against it. So I think, to be quite honest, I think you maybe just play Raskin as a 6. To be honest, and Rothwell's better as an 8. Raskin likes playing as a 6. So I get the point, but Dio, again, you're wasting Dio, because Dio's not a 6 either. He shouldn't be covering for anybody. He's better higher up the pitch, and I think that's why he's had such a dip in form, because he's playing a role that he's not comfortable with, he's not familiar with. So I think you just play plays in there.
I actually thought he had a decent game on Saturday. I think he's actually, I mean, I don't think he's been playing well. I thought that probably has been his best game in terms of well, they give away a lot of fouls and his passing, as always, is a little bit erratic.
Well, he just I think he just panics sometimes. If he's on the ball for longer than 5 seconds, he just panics.
I think he just got pirouetting just for the whole game. It'd be great.
Yeah, well, I think he plays better in tight spaces, 1 touch, 2 touch. That's where we see the best of him, when he's in tight spaces, having to play those quick ones. But if he's having to take 5, 6 touches on the ball, I don't think he's comfortable with that.
I think you don't then see it as a game for Chermiti to get his first hour or so.
No.
He's big, strong, physical, can hold the ball up.
No, I think if you're winning the game 2-3-0, I think you bring him on after an hour. I think you bring him in progressively. I think if you win a game like that, it's either sink or swim, isn't it? So I think what's happening with Miovski seems to be working. So I think you keep with him. Miovski will have his confidence. I mean, he could have had a hat trick, really, couldn't he, on Saturday? He had 1 cleared off the line. He had 1 ruled out for offside.
Yeah.
So, he's getting in the right areas. He's getting in the right positions. So I don't think you change that. I think, in my opinion, only changes is more on the right wing and Dio in the middle of the park. But I think I'm smart enough to know that probably won't happen. It'll be more on the right wing and Dio in midfield.
So, I mean, I suppose it is interesting that we're probably not talking about much in the way of changes now. So are we looking for a level of consistency with the team maybe as we start? Because there's been a lot of chopping and changes for the first dozen games, so it probably hasn't helped to some degree.
Yeah, well, I said that the other week, didn't I? You just pick a team and just stick with it. Allow them to form partnerships and get used to playing with each other. That's the only way that this team's going to get better as a collective. If you keep dropping and changing all the time, you're changing your midfield, you're changing your front line, you're changing your back four, people are just not going to form those partnerships, and it's going to look, as it has done, it's going to look shaky. It's going to look weak. And even if you compare it with Celtic, they've had mainstays in their team that have played the majority of their games every season. We had that with like Goldson and Tav and McGregor. Players who played near enough every game were always in the team. They had those partnerships. We don't have that at the minute. So you need to start implementing that by just sticking with the same team, trusting them. Because I think if you keep dropping and changing, it shows you don't really trust the players, in my opinion.
No, I like you, I'd be amazed if there's significant changes. You don't go and win a game 2-0 and actually play your best performance in the league, or sorry, domestically, and then rip it all up and bring on 4 or 5 different players. That's probably a recipe for real failure, and still can't afford to lose. If he loses, the Nice will be right back out and directed in his way. And Livingston away when you've got 3/4 of the stadium isn't the place to go for. It's practically a home game again.
No, but again, it'd be a massive boost if he can go to Livingston and get a win. That could be a massive boost because I'm potentially talking 3 wins on the bounce. So, but the knives, like we said last episode, the knives will be out for him for a number of months, unless he can pick up silverware in December time. The knives will be out for him because you've got people who've already made their minds up, who want him gone and want Kevin Muscat in, or they want Stephen Davis to come in as interim manager. It's just there's already people made their minds up.
It's interesting. Just obviously this time last year, people would have took Potter in a heartbeat, and now he's in a torrid time. I think Ancelotti's struggling at Botafogo, isn't it? It's never.
He took league champions and they're finishing 6th.
Really?
Yeah, they're 6th.
That's
bad. Yeah,
that could have been much worse. And that's the thing. Nobody knows what any manager does. We could. Russell Martin may eventually be sacked, and maybe sacked sooner rather than later. Who knows? But whoever comes in, there's no guarantees they'll be a success.
We haven't had an obvious candidate for years for who's going to get the job. I think the last one, the most obvious candidate was Gio.
And that didn't go so well at the end.
No, it didn't. Not at all.
Anyway, that's a story for another day. That's so as it stands just now. So Rangers 1-2-0. We've got a European game against Genk. Your score prediction for Thursday night then, Cameron?
I think it'd be 3-1.
A tight 3-1 or a comfortable 3-1, as in
No, I think it will be comfortable, but I still think we have lapses in defence. So I won't be surprised if we're winning 3-0 and then sort of with 20 minutes to go, we leak one, a silly goal or a ball over the top. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. And I think similarly, I think we'd obviously be going for a win. Europe has been good to us most of the time. Obviously, the Bruges ones is fresh in our mind, and that was horrendous. But other than that, even this season, it's been relatively decent. And there, so I think we'll get a couple of Ross, who's maybe been out drinking. He's 4-0 Rangers. Maybe a bit early. We don't give up chances. We don't score as many yet, but certainly, I think there's an element of confidence, weirdly, that we will be successful on Thursday night. I think I will go probably with something around 2-0, 3-0. Start of Europa League Thursday night. Maybe we should be due another Tav goal, I think, on that basis, in it, because if it's Europa League kicking in. And I don't know when the games are, because last week the Champions League, it was quite bizarre, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm not sure how the Europa League works. Is that all Thursday games, or is it?
I think there's the occasional Wednesday in there, but I think like we're playing Thursday, and then Celtic don't play theirs till. Oh no, they play Thursday as well, don't they? I think it's all Thursdays. There's just a shit ton of them.
I don't know. I kind of keep up with the European formats. They change that many things. I don't really know how it's happening. So Thursday night, we will be back at Ibrox. Obviously, here's hoping for a positive win. We will be back as a show on Friday night to discuss that, and hopefully, again, it's a more positive episode as this one was. It's been a little bit depressing the last couple of weeks, so it's good to be able to talk about a reasonably good performance, a couple of goals, and maybe the first shoots of some sort of recovery. We will see. Who knows? So thank you everybody for watching. We will be back on Friday, and we'll see you then. Take care now. Bye.